Good afternoon, friends. Oh, we can do better than that. Good afternoon, friends. My name is Frank Wu, and I have the honor of serving as president here at Queens College in the world's borough, in the greatest city in the world. Welcome to LaFrac Concert Hall for our annual Queens College Kupferberg Center Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. This annual tradition has been held virtually for the past few years, and we're delighted to have everyone back on our beautiful campus in person for the first time since before the pandemic. Before we begin, a reminder, please turn off or silence your cell phone or any other device that you might have with you this evening. Now, I ask that you please rise for the playing of Lift Every Voice and Sing, also known as the Black National Anthem by James Weldon Johnson, performed today by vocalist and Queens College undergraduate admissions counselor Isima Leonard and pianist and City College alumnus Nathan Faraz. Lyrics to the song, also known as the Black National Anthem, can be accessed with the QR code in your program. Please join me in welcoming our performers.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of
What a moving performance. Another big hand for our vocalist, Isaima Leonard. We have a spectacular lineup for you this afternoon featuring remarks from leading government officials and student leaders, a new video celebrating Dr. King's connection to Queens College, a keynote address from Jelani Cobb, the esteemed dean of the Columbia School of Journalism and a nationally prominent writer on the staff of the New Yorker magazine, and a musical performance by acclaimed star and Grammy-nominated artist Samara Joy. This performance, everything, is occurring in the Aaron Copland School of Music, nationally renowned, with over 100 of its alumni and faculty having been nominated for or having won Grammy Awards. I want to acknowledge the exemplary work of the MLK Planning Committee, led by our talented chief librarian, Simone Yearwood. If Simone would wave, thank you, Simone. And you'll see all of the names of the planning committee displayed on the screen above us. Thank you so much. We have special guests in attendance, in addition to our elected officials who will give brief remarks later in the program. The vice chairperson of the City University New York Board of Trustees, Sandra Wilkin. Sandra, if you would wave. The CUNY Senior Vice Chancellor for Institutional Affairs, Strategic Advancement, and Special Counsel, Glenda Grace. Welcome back to Queens College, Glenda. And she's accompanied by her father. Thank you, sir, for joining us this afternoon. The CUNY Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management, I'm not sure if she made it through the traffic, Renee Sarmiento. Renee, if you're here, if you would kindly wave. And, well, she'll be here in a moment, I'm sure. And the Queensborough Community College President, my friend and colleague Christine Mangino, joined by many of her students. We also have the Executive Director of the Louis Armstrong House Museum, Regina Bain. Thank you, Regina. A special big shout out to our sign language interpreters. Those are Sarah Vieira, Sheldon Price, who interpreted Lift Every Voice and Sing, assisted by Jared Lopatin. Today, we have the honor of remembering the legacy of a man whose life has left a lasting impression on our society for generations to this day, and whose impact will continue with us for many more generations to come. Throughout his life cut short, Dr. King promoted equality, freedom, and justice for all. He made the ultimate sacrifice in pursuit of these ideals, and he continues to inspire. Here on this campus, we've always felt a special connection because Dr. King first came here in 1965 as part of the inaugural John F. Kennedy Lecture Series in Colden Auditorium. During his speech, he paid homage to Queens College student Andrew Goodman, and also his friends James Chaney and Michael Schwerner, 3 volunteers brutally murdered just a few months earlier while they were helping to register African American voters in the Deep South. He offered hope for the future, and Dr. King closed his speech that day by saying, and I quote, "I still have faith. However dark the night, however dreary the day, I still believe that we shall overcome." We have come a long way in our society since then, and even though progress has been made, much more work remains to be done. We know that. Here at Queens College, we constantly strive to stay true to Dr. King's vision of that long arc toward justice. Our mission as a college is to prepare students to serve as innovative leaders in a diverse world that they will make more equitable and inclusive. We hope that Dr. King would be proud of what we have accomplished and what we are still doing, and we hope that he would encourage us to continue our efforts, which we will. I'd like to welcome to the stage for greetings Adrian Adams, the esteemed Speaker of the New York City Council, a great friend of Queens College and the CUNY system. Speaker Adams is the first ever African-American Speaker of the city's legislative body, leading the most diverse and first women majority council in New York City history. Please join me in welcoming City Council Speaker Adrian Adams.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wu. It is indeed my esteemed honor and pleasure to be back here at Queens College today. Yes, I am New York City Council Speaker Adrian Adams, and I thank President Frank Wu once again and members of the Queens College community for inviting me to join you today in celebrating the indelible legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You know, I like to say his name, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., because too often we hear his name reduced to an acronym, MLK. That's not enough for me. I don't know about you, but it's not enough for me. And so I encourage those of you today, tomorrow, in the years going forward, when you hear Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King referred to as MLK or MLK Day, that you take a moment just to remind whoever is using the acronym, this man had a name, and it was a beautiful name. It was an esteemed name, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., on whose shoulders we stand on. And as a daughter of the South, raised by two parents from South Carolina, I was born in the heat of the civil rights movement. Very, very small child when Dr. King was assassinated, but I remember being sent home from Catholic school. I believe I was a second or third grader, sent home from Catholic school. The day had stopped, the moment in time had stopped because this great icon was assassinated. Dr. King's hope charged the air. This hope moved us to action. It ushered us forward to demand justice for ourselves and for the generations to follow. And because of the foundation built then, we have continued progress today. Though Dr. King is largely remembered for leading us on to win our civil rights, he wasn't limited to this single vision of justice. He believed in our collective liberation, was rooted in securing economic justice for all, and that's why Dr. King organized the Poor People's Campaign and fought to improve the material conditions of our lives. He saw the intertwined relationship between poverty and racism and made it his mission to disengage and disentangle it. The world has made significant progress since Dr. King was alive, but in many ways, we're still stuck fighting some of the same battles as before. Here in New York, Black and brown people are still disproportionately affected by poverty, and so many neighborhoods across this city face persistent struggles of underinvestment and disparities in access to opportunities and resources. But today and every day, as leader of the council, I'm committed to this goal for our communities to be healthy and safe. I believe in our investments to the city of New York. And I believe that with my colleagues in the council and across government, my colleagues that are here today, Borough President Donovan Richards, Assemblymember Khalil Anderson, and so many more, we make it our business and will continue to make it our business as those who serve underserved communities, that we too will bring our communities up. We must rise as communities. We must rise as neighbors in New York City. Oh, Dr. King had a dream, but Dr. King wasn't just a dreamer. Dr. King was a doer. And so today and every day, I'm grateful to Dr. King for the reminder that our struggles are interconnected and that our freedom is too. It will take all of us working together to fulfill his vision for a just society. And though we might not see all the fruits of our labor in this lifetime, what we accomplish today will allow our children and our children's children to take and mold for a better tomorrow. As a mother and a grandmother, I count that as a true measure of progress. Let's not just hold on to Dr. King's dream. Let us be doers of the dream. Thank you very much.
We are fortunate to have with us a great supporter of Queens College. If you run on our brand new track, know that he's responsible for it and he's probably faster than you are. Borough President Donovan Richards has been active promoting diversity throughout his tenure, creating the new Immigrant Welcome Center at Borough Hall and hosting the office's first ever Hispanic Heritage Month celebration and Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Let's welcome Queensborough President Donovan Richards.
Well, President Wu was sort of fast, too. But what a great afternoon to be here at Queens College. I always love coming back here because I get to see my brother, Frank Wu, who's doing such a great job. Let's give him and his staff a rousing round of applause, because every single day they're enabling us to achieve Dr. King's dream. I'm so proud of the school right down to the name, Queens College. Just take a look around. This school isn't just named after this borough. It looks like it too. All colors, all races, all religions, all ethnicities, all sexual orientations, all gender identities. Teachers, students, staff, and administrators, all working as one to create a better future for every person who walks through these gates. It's no wonder why Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came here to see it for himself on May 13th, 1965. He came here to see what Queens is all about, how we are the closest thing to living proof that his dream can become a reality. He came here to see what inspired Andrew Goodman, a Queens College student and civil rights activist who was murdered in Mississippi by the KKK 1 year earlier. I certainly stand here, King said, under the inspiration of the fact that it was Queens College that gave to America, and indeed to the world, Andrew Goodman, whose creative witness will certainly live for generations yet unborn. He, along with others, paid the supreme price for this struggle, and I'm sure that we will see in many ways that his death was not in vain. If only Dr. King and Andrew Goodman could see us today. They would be so proud of who you are as a school community and who we are as a borough. Because at the end of the day, this borough is all about service. Service to ourselves, our communities, our city, and our country. It was Dr. King. It's what Dr. King was all about himself. This time of year, we see the clip of him on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, bellowing, "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last." But how many of you know of his speech at Alpha Phi Alpha's 50th anniversary banquet on August 11th, 1956? That night, he spoke of what he called a beloved community, the creation of a society where men will live together as brothers. But that beloved community he envisioned isn't leaderless. At the end of his speech that August night, Dr. King said those of us in positions of leadership who have been granted by God great resources to be able to lead must never forget who we're here to serve. Never forget that those resources came from people in the back doing little jobs in a big way, he said. Never forget that you are where you are today because the masses help you get there. They are waiting for somebody out in the midst of the wilderness of life to stand up and speak and take a stand for them. He's not just talking about these grand leaders of national or international movements. He's talking about the student body president who looks out for their peers. He's talking about the organizer who galvanizes communities around a common goal. My friends, he's talking about every single one of us. To Dr. King, there was no such thing as a minor movement. No action was too small to potentially change the way a community operates. Dr. King called us to action that day. He spoke to this college. Because there are people out there in the midst of the wilderness of life who need someone to stand up, speak, and take a stand for them. By heeding that call, we can build that beloved community that he dreamed of, and we can build it right here in Queens. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day to all. Let's get to work.
Our next speaker has been associated with Queens College for more than half his life. Queens Assembly member, New York State Assembly member from Queens, Khalil Anderson became the youngest African American member in the history of that body when he was elected in 2020 as a proud graduate of this institution and the SEEK program and the Department of Urban Studies. We are thrilled to welcome back a native son, Khalil Anderson.
There we go. There we go. Let's give another round of applause for everybody that's here. Wow. It is so great to be back at the scene of the crime of Good Trouble here at Queens College. And some of my colleagues who are in the audience understand what I say when I say that, because we were always fighting for social justice here on this campus. So I'm really excited to be back. Good afternoon, gracious and greetings to everyone who is here. I want to just take a moment to acknowledge those who have made today possible, and that is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself, bringing people together in a space where we can live out his true vision of having the dream and laying out the steps of achieving that dream. When I think about my time here at Queens College being the inaugural class of the In the Footsteps of Dr. King trip to Atlanta, Georgia, that trip really taught Black, brown, and folks of different races and religions the truth of Dr. King and where are the footsteps that he walked in. I want to also talk about today that behind every great man like Dr. Martin Luther King, there's always a great woman just in a few steps. So Dr. Martin Luther King had Coretta Scott King, who held him down and made sure that his dream can become a reality for future generations. So we definitely have to acknowledge and uplift her and give her a round of applause. To all the married men in the audience, y'all will know what that means to do that, because that's so super important, because y'all want to go home. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to get there. So Dr. King, one piece of Dr. King's life that's very little talked about is his vision for economic transparency and equality. He believed, oh yeah, y'all can clap that up. Dr. King marched and protested and demonstrated for economic freedoms. And he fought alongside sanitation workers in Memphis. And that was the beginning of a fight for more economic transparency and equality. He believed that folks should be able to lift themselves up. Black folks should be able to lift themselves up and be able to invest. Dr. King said, and this is one of my favorite quotes and sayings that he has said, he says, "We may be economically rich as a nation, but we are morally destitute when we don't invest in eradicating poverty. We are morally destitute when we have a nation that does not focus on Black people and lifting them up. We are morally destitute if we are a nation that allows the inequality gap to grow, which we've seen it advance during COVID-19. We are morally destitute when we don't prioritize labor, when we don't prioritize human rights, when we don't prioritize civil rights in this day. We are morally destitute when we don't realize that his dream has not truly been lived and realized until we've lifted every boat, until we repair the harm that has been done to Black folks and to families all across this nation during Jim Crow racism, during slavery, and so on. So I'm proud to stand here not just as a QC alum, and a follower in Dr. King's footsteps, but also someone who works with my colleagues in government who are here today to champion the true walk in his footsteps. It's so important that as we celebrate the many triumphs that we've had because of Dr. King paving the way, we have our first black woman speaker leading the largest body of our city in New York right here in Adrienne Adams. We have our first black man ever elected to borough president here in the county of Queens. Those are not mere symbols of Dr. King's walk and the walk in his footsteps, but that is a real struggle and a real fight to a commitment to true unity and to black excellence. So I hope to leave everyone with this. I know President Wu said brief remarks, and I feel like I'm getting the hook. But you know, when I come back to Queens, I don't know how to act. But I hope to leave you with this. We should not use the symbolism of his fight, Dr. King's fight, of economic freedom and transparency to be misguided. If America does not respond creatively to the challenge to ban racism, some future historian will have to say that a great civilization died because it lacked a soul and a commitment to make justice a reality for all. God bless everyone, and let's continue to keep Dr. King in our footsteps and our minds.
Assemblymember Anderson is always welcome back, and for as long as he wants to be at the podium. All right. Now, I ask you to please direct your attention to the screen for the premiere of the Queens College third installment in our video trilogy. This series began 2 years ago with a video recognizing Queens College's role in the history of the civil rights movement, and continued last year with a piece commemorating Dr. King's visit in 1965 through the eyes of alumni who were there in person. Today's video is entitled Legacy Connection, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Queens College. The video was produced by our Office of Communications and Marketing, and you're the first to see it. Please join me in taking a look at the screen.
It was a hot, humid August day in 1964, and the democratic process was boiling over. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was addressing a huge rally on the Atlantic City Boardwalk in New Jersey. The event was the National Democratic Convention, and the issue was the seating of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. Hoisted high above the crowd were large posters of the three murdered civil rights workers, James Earl Chaney, Michael Henry Schwerner, and Queens College student Andrew Goodman. The bodies of the young men who had been registering black voters in Mississippi had been found 3 weeks earlier that summer. Dr. King and other civil rights leaders had toured the Deep South, driving media attention on the search and the pursuit of justice. Now they challenged the all-white representation of voting delegates at the Democratic Convention from Mississippi. All black members of the Democratic Party were excluded, with awesome activists like Fannie Lou Hamer, co-founder of the Freedom Democratic Party. They were going to be heard.
If the Freedom Democratic Party is not seated now, I question America. Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Listening to Dr. King's thunderous condemnation of these open sores of gross injustice was Dr. Stephen Schwerner, brother of Michael Schwerner, and a future Queens College Director of Counseling and Academic Senate Chair. He was joined at the rally by his wife Nancy and his father Nat.
In 1964, there was no black representation in the state of Mississippi at all. There were whole counties that were majority African American with no African Americans eligible to vote. A lot of people came to be supportive of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. We spent a lot of time at the convention and trying to get delegate credentials to get people from the Freedom Democratic Party seated inside the convention. And as I say, that I was there and my wife was there and my father was there.
Dr. King was deeply involved in traveling and speaking extensively throughout the Deep South, even in the face of discrimination, intimidation, and cover-up.
He did everything he could. It was important these murders be kept in public view so that people would know how folks were treated in Mississippi and as a generalization through a lot of the rest of the South. And it was certainly in King's interest, both politically and personally, to keep this publicity going because it was beneficial to the movement. And that King was certainly devoted to the civil rights movement.
9 months later, in May 1965, Dr. King was invited to the stage of Colden Auditorium at Queens College as the first speaker in the inaugural John F. Kennedy Lecture Series.
I certainly stand here under the inspiration of the fact that it was Queens College that gave to America, and indeed to the world, Andy Gutman, whose creative witness will certainly live for generations yet unborn. He, along with others, paid the supreme price for this struggle, and I'm sure that we will see in many ways that his death was not in vain.
It was emblematic of a long-standing connectivity between the life and legacy of Dr. King, Queens College, the three civil rights workers, and the civil rights movement. That connectivity is today exemplified by the In the Footsteps program, led by Rabbi Moshe Shore of the Queens College faculty who worked with Dr. King. Students visit the Southern civil rights sites where historic battles were fought and where hard-fought victories took root. In 2018, the Godwin Turnback Museum at Queens College hosted the traveling exhibit called Waging Peace, 100 Years of Action. A replica of Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail was featured. He wrote the letter in response to a public statement of concern by Southern religious leaders about his unjust imprisonment for leading nonviolent demonstrations against segregation in 1963. Dr. King coined the phrase, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." The civil rights legacy of Queens College rings strongly every day on campus when bells toll at the beginning of each hour from the Cheney Goodwin Schwerner Clock Tower at the Benjamin S. Rosenthal Library, which maintains a fulsome civil rights archive. 2014 was the year of the 50th anniversary of the three murders. A coalition of people and groups proposed honoring the civil rights workers posthumously with the highest national civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Attorney Stuart Shorenstein, chair of the New York City and State practice of Cozen O'Connor Public Strategies, diligently collaborated with colleagues to work closely with the White House on the awards.
We live in a time of severe rhetoric coupled with threats and actual violence that are attacking the fabric of our nation and the walls of our democracy. What Goodman and Cheney and Schwerner tried to do was to preserve that democracy. It is so meaningful for the country to be reminded of the sacrifices that people made so that we could have a free democracy and one where every vote is recognized and every citizen is recognized.
For President Barack Obama, there was a special meaning attached to this prestigious recognition.
Is particularly important to him because the civil rights era helped change the voting patterns and the future of African Americans in this country. I don't know that in the 1960s an African American would have been elected president, but I do know in 2008 an African American was elected president, and it did stand on the backs of Martin Luther King and the Freedom Riders and all the others that paved the way.
In attendance at the November 2014 White House ceremony to accept the medals was Stephen Schwerner and Michael's wife, Rita Levant Schwerner Bender, a Queens College graduate. Angela Lewis, daughter of James Earl Cheney, and David Goodman, brother of Andrew Goodman.
On June 21st, 1964, 3 young men, 2 white and 1 black, set out to learn more about the burning of a church in Neshoba County, Mississippi. James Earl Cheney, 21 years old. Andrew Goodman, 20 years old. Michael Henry Schwerner, 24 years old. Young men. And in that Freedom Summer, these 3 Americans refused to sit on the sidelines. Their brutal murder by a gang of Ku Klux Klan members shook the conscience of our nation. It took 44 days to find their bodies, 41 years to bring the lead perpetrator to justice. And while they're often remembered for how they died, we honor them today for how they lived, with the idealism and the courage of youth. James, Andrew, and Michael could not have known the impact they would have on the civil rights movement or on future generations. And here today, inspired by their sacrifice, we continue to fight for the ideals of equality and justice for which they gave their lives.
What a moving tribute showing how Queens College has always been part of the civil rights movement. Our next speaker is our Student Association President, Jamal Mark. Jamal is a computer science major who has been active in student government throughout his time here at Queens College. He has served as the Black Student Union Treasurer and as the CUNY University Student Undergraduate Delegate. Please welcome Student Association President Jamal Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. Of course, from the introduction, I am Jamal Mark and currently serve as the Queens College Student Association President. Before I became this college's student government president, I formerly served as the BSU Treasurer, CUNY University Student Undergraduate Delegate, and also was formerly the Executive Committee Secretary and Public Relations Committee Chair. In addition to that, I'm also the SEO Sponsors for Educational Opportunity Scholars Class of 2019 alum. And last but not least, and this is the best part, in the past summer 2022, I was an intern area manager at Amazon in Georgia. But to say the least though, I am just an African American male who grew up in a low-income household, born and raised in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, with two parents who migrated from Grenada, the Caribbean islands. But enough about me and my background. Today, I would like to share with you all my favorite quote from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And the quote is, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." So to simply explain what King just mentioned in an analogy, we are all the legs of a table, of one table. If one leg breaks, cracks, or is affected, the table falls down and we all fall down. So simply put is, we are all in this together. We are all living in the same society. So of course, if you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. But the theme of this ceremony is, what was old is new again. So this is true as we are experiencing what Dr. King, Andrew Goodman, and other civil rights leaders faced in the 1960s today. In July 2021, the Queens College Student Association hosted the second Black Lives Matter March, which is where I met State Representative Khalil Anderson. However, it went beyond the Black Lives Matter movement. There are now recurrent social movements about gender equality, women's rights, abortion rights, and so on. Everyone is still fighting for civil rights. We have made progress, but we are not at the finish line. And just as NBA legend Kobe Bryant once said, the job is not done. Without Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Andrew Goodman, and other heroes who fought for civil rights in the 1960s, I would not be facing you all today addressing an importance of leadership, advocacy, and activism. And I would not have many achievements and opportunities that I mentioned before. Many students of color would not be enrolled at Queens College, and all the opportunities and resources we see today for people of color would not exist. Without Dr. King Jr. and all those who fought for civil rights, this city and nation would not have the leaders of color we see today, such as former US President Barack Obama, the New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Queens Borough President Donovan Richards, Councilwoman and New York City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams, New York State Representative Khalil Anderson, State Attorney General Letitia James, and many more. I am blessed to have these leadership positions bestowed upon me, and I encourage the students who are tuning in and listening to me right now, speaking to all of you, and all the other Queens College and CUNY students to join and participate in the organizations their campus provides. Just like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Andrew Goodman, and other civil rights leaders, we must assemble and work together to make a difference, create new opportunities for future generations. I encourage all of you to become a better leader for your community, seize every opportunity, and help others in every way you can. Be a good person. Thank you.
Our next student speaker is Michaela Noble. Michaela is a psychology major with a minor in biology and health science, and she is the president of the Black Student Union. Please join me in welcoming Michaela Noble.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michaela Noble. I'm the president of the Black Student Union, and I'm also Student Association's Academic Affairs Chair. Thank you all for joining us today to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a man whose bravery and ambition has left a lasting effect on our society, a man who has dreamed of racial and social equality. He fought and struggled for the country to make his dream a reality. It's wonderful to witness that with each passing generation, we take a step closer to achieving this goal. As president of the Black Student Union, my team and I coordinated a blackout where BSU club members and students of Queens College wore all black to stand in solidarity with the students and staff of Delaney Hall who've experienced graffiti of just hate speech in their building. It's hateful acts like these that remind us that the fight is not over. The blackout was similar to the peaceful events that Dr. King has coordinated for the voices of the people to be heard. Dr. King would have been 94 years old this year. And in this auditorium right now, there's a representation of every generation since he's been here. Different ages ranging between 18 to 94. And it's a great thing because we are able to gather, no matter the age, no matter the race, the gender, the social background, or any economic backgrounds, we are able to acknowledge the legacy of this great man. By holding programs like these, we are able to renew and inform all ages, young and old, of Dr. King's dream. We can pay our respects and spend time in gratitude for the fight and the sacrifices that he has made to bring unity to the people of America. As we grow together as a country, we are able to renew the call to protect racial and social equality. Dr. King once said, "You can kill the dreamer, but you cannot kill the dream." Although Dr. King is no longer with us, it is our duty to keep his dream alive in our generation and in the generations to come. We still have work to do, and we can use Dr. King's fight as a framework of how we can get things on the roll. The dream will continue to live as long as we continue to do the work to support it. Thank you all again for joining us, and I pray that you have a good day. Thank you.
We have a special presentation for our keynote speaker, and I'd like to invite the chair of the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Planning Committee to join me here at the podium. Dean Simone Yearwood, who heads our libraries right here on the Queens College campus, the largest library in the CUNY system, has done so much to put together today's program, and so I owe her a debt of gratitude. Thank you so much, Dean Yearwood.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We are very fortunate today to have with us our keynote speaker, Dr. Jelani Cobb. He is the Dean, Dr. Cobb. He is Dean of the Columbia University Journalism School, a former professor of history and director of the Africana Studies Institute at the University of Connecticut. He is a renowned author, writer, and journalist who specializes in African American history and 20th century politics. Dr. Cobb is the author of The Substance of Hope, Barack Obama and the Paradox of Progress, and To the Break of Dawn, a freestyle on the hip-hop aesthetics. He has contributed to The New Yorker since 2012 and became a staff writer in 2015. His articles and essays have also appeared in many national publications. His collection, The Devil and Dave Chappelle and Other Essays, was published in 2007. Born and raised here in Queens, yeah, that's right, we're representing Queens today. Yes. Dr. Cobb is a graduate of Howard University and Rutgers University, where he received his doctorate in American history. We are honored to present a special award to Dr. Cobb this afternoon, a painting by a Queens College MFA student, Valeska Lafrance, titled, now I'm going to butcher up this French, De la mer à la mer. I think that was pretty good. The translation is from their mother's tears, from their mother to the sea. And on that note, I'd like to please welcome Dr. Cobb. We're not going to let you hold this while you talk. Okay. oh, wait. But you can you get the Thank you.
Good afternoon. So, I have a thing I have to tell you. I have like an issue. You know, I mean, it's fine. Brooklyn is a fine place. No. It's nice. It's nice. I've been there before. The people are always like, the thing is, like, whenever you go to Brooklyn, they're always like, Brooklyn! The Queens people don't do that. And so I just decided that, like, I was going to make that a thing. You know, anytime somebody mentions Queens, I'm like, Queens! So Queens is in the house. So I am a proud Queens native. I am a proud graduate of Jamaica High School. I have had the opportunity to speak around the world, at various places around the country, at universities and in places of great esteem and regard. And I begin almost always my comments by telling people that I am from Queens, New York. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. And it is exemplified by an incident that is nearly 20 years old, where I was on an airplane and I was flying from Atlanta to New York. And this was not long after 9/11. I was seated in the middle of the plane in an aisle seat. And from my vantage point, I could see a gentleman board the plane, begin walking down the aisle. This tall, olive-skinned man. He was wearing a tafia, a white tunic, white pants. He had a long beard. That if you had an idea of what the word Muslim might conjure, especially at that point in time, it might be someone who looked like him, who was dressed like him. And you could almost see the tension ratchet up as he walked down that aisle. He takes a seat, one row behind me, across in an aisle seat. And I looked at him, and then I looked at him again. I said, "Where are you from?" And he looked at me and said, "Where are you from?" So that's an appropriate response. And I said, "I'm from Queens." And he said, "Okay." Everybody is eavesdropping. It was like, "Are we in danger? The large black man is going to save us." And I said, "I tell you that I'm from Queens because I think that you're from Queens too. And if you are who I think you are, we were in the same breakdance crew in high school." He looks at me and says, "Will," which is my given name. He was like, "Will?" And I said, "Shake." We stood up and hugged. All the people around us relaxed. He was a breakdancer. He's not going to kill us. And it occurred to me that as he walked down that aisle, it was easy to project upon him the ambient fears and stereotypes that we had imbibed as a society in the midst of the war, so-called war on terror. But while some people saw Muslim, foreigner, enemy, threat, I saw a person who was a friend, whose home I had spent many of my formative hours in. It's a person who I regarded as the best breakdancer I knew at the time. The reason for that was because I attended Jamaica High School in a borough which is statistically the most diverse county in the United States, among the most diverse counties in the world. I was in Harris County, Texas, working on a story, and Harris County has had an explosion of immigration, people from all over the world, and the story was about how it was changing the face of Texas politics. And I'm there as a reporter. I'm not part of the story. I'm just there to record what's happening. And a speaker says, and here we are in Harris County, the most diverse county in the United States. I said, ahem. And so I went to Jamaica High School. I played baseball. I was a right fielder. The center fielder was Puerto Rican. The left fielder was South Asian. First baseman was African American. Second baseman was Jewish. Catcher was Jamaican. I know, right? It's like Jamaicans in Brooklyn. That's like. So, it's funny. My wife is Jamaican, so I'll tell you that. But you know, we looked like the United Nations taking the field. We sucked. But that was less important than the fact that we all played together, that we looked at each other and saw each other as teammates. And so that ideal of multiracial democracy looked like my high school. That ideal that Dr. King talked about, that principle that Dr. King sacrificed his life for, that point, when he was selected as a leader of the Montgomery Improvement Association, he was 26 years old. They firebombed his house 3 or 4 months into that campaign. And that began from age 26, a ceaseless campaign of threats, attempts upon his life, attempts to intimidate, harassment. He was a man who knew from the dawn of his youth that sooner or later they were going to catch up with him. He didn't stop. Did not stop doing the work that he was doing. So he gave his life to that principle of multiracial democracy. And if I were to ask myself what that looked like, I went back years later and did a story for The New Yorker about Jamaica High School, about the closure of Jamaica High School. And I thought that I might have looked at this through kind of rose-colored glasses, and that my recollections were tinted with nostalgia. I called my classmates of different backgrounds and said, what do you remember about race in the school? And I talked with my Asian American classmates, and I talked with my Latino classmates, and I talked with my white classmates, and I talked with classmates from an array of backgrounds, and they were like, no, I remember that we actually got along, that we had a sense of community among ourselves. That can't be taken for granted. Because when Dr. King said that quote, we gave you a favorite quote from Dr. King, I'll tell you that my favorite quote from Dr. King is one that I often have to revise, is when he says that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice, which is kind of selling us a bit of bill of goods. So Dr. King did not mention that you actually have to get out and bend it. So we have to do the work of preserving the gains that have been won by preceding generations, by people who sacrificed on behalf of causes that they might not ever live to see the benefit of. But we have. So I understand this. This is my framing. This is the place where I begin, my approach to these matters. It would be dishonest, though, to say that this is what Queens has always been, that this reflects the totality of our experience as a community and as a borough historically. In fact, many of us have seen the famous, iconic photograph of the man attempting to stab someone with the flagpole that holds the American flag in order to prevent busing in the Boston school system. We don't talk about the fact that a decade before that, there had been similar uprisings to prevent the integration of Queens schools. That there had been resistance to the Catholic diocese when it attempted to integrate Catholic schools in Queens. Most of us are familiar with the Dahl tests that came out of Brown versus Board of Education. If you're not, the quick summary is that two famed and esteemed psychologists, Kenneth and Mamie Clark, designed a test to measure the impact of white supremacist thinking on the psyche of black children. They gave black children a black doll and a white doll. They would ask them which doll is smart, and they would say the white doll. They would ask them which doll is beautiful, and they would say the white doll. And they'd say which doll is good, and they would say the white doll. And then they would say which doll looks like you, and they would say the black doll. And it, by implication, showed the way that they had imbibed the white supremacist propaganda of their own inferiority. That test became central to moving the Supreme Court in 1954 to strike down legal segregation in education. What we do not talk about is the fact that just weeks after that Supreme Court decision came down, Kenneth Clark took aim at segregation in the New York City school system and said that we had smugly believed ourselves to be above the problems that were plaguing the South, but they were very much present in New York City. They were very much present in the school systems in Queens. And so we know the story is not entirely a pretty one. I attended high school from 1983 to 1987. In December of 1986, 3 young men in Howard Beach section of Queens. Some folk in here are old enough to remember what happened that day. They were harassed for being in that neighborhood, committing the crime of attempting to buy pizza, chased out onto the highway, where a young man by the name of Michael Griffith was struck by a car and killed. That same year, I remember being in a northern section of Queens, and for the first time in my life, being called the N-word. Hurled at me as people drove by on the street. I don't record this history or recall this history in order to cast a pall on the celebratory tone of this day. I recall this history in order to reiterate the point that our society is only as democratic as we make it, that we are only as just as our resolve to pursue justice. Dr. King understood this intuitively. He talked about it. In 1965, he gave a speech at the conclusion of the Selma to Montgomery March, and he talked about the way in which the reasons that black people have been stripped of the right to vote. I talked about it in detail this morning at Abyssinia, and I won't walk you all through the whole thing, but he said that in essence, it was necessary in the South after the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln realized that the only thing that would prevent the Southern slave-holding powers from rising up and tearing the country in half again would be to create a democratic bulwark in the South that would forestall their political power. And in that, he saw the only mechanism for doing that was enfranchising the former slaves, reasoning correctly for a half century that they would not vote for the Democratic Party, which was overwhelmingly the party of the slaveholding class. That is the logic of it. And you begin to get a fragile system of multiracial democracy in the United States. For the first time, we begin to actually see this. And then we slowly see what in the church people call backsliding. We begin sliding back into the anti-democratic behavior. This was the campaign of lynching, the campaign of violence, the campaign of terrorism that stripped away the right to vote for the newly enfranchised, newly emancipated former slaves. At the same time this happens, the Ku Klux Klan, which had died out in the 1870s, resurrected with a more broad set of hostilities. The old Klan, or the first Klan, had been obsessed with only the question of subordinating what they've been then referred to as Negroes. But the new Klan, they hated Catholics, they hated Jews, they hated immigrants, they hated black people, had a broader set of contempt. If we look around, we can actually see as these hostilities make their way into the public square, the public thinking. So I tell my students this, I'll sometimes give them a quiz. I say, I want to talk to you today about an immigrant community that was besieged by the idea that they were bringing drugs into the country, particularly in California. They have been the subject of intense debates about immigration, and that there's the allegation made by some that these people are taking jobs from Americans, particularly white Americans. And they say, oh, who are we talking about? Well, you're talking about Latinos in California. And I say, no, I'm talking about the Chinese in California more than a century ago. And those hostilities led to the creation and the passage of the Chinese Exclusion Act. And I'll say, okay, question two. I want to talk to you about a religious community that has been accused of harboring sympathies toward terrorists, that has been accused of being too favorable to the nation's enemies, that have been widely subjected to surveillance, and that members, high-profile members of, have been removed from the country because they posed security threats, allegedly. We're talking about Muslims after 9/11. I'll say, no, I'm talking about Jews in the 19-teens and 1920s after World War I. And so our theme is that everything old is new again. We have seen these antique hostilities resurrect themselves like Jason, like some horrific figment from a horror movie. At least there, you can listen to the score and know that this creature is going to jump back out of its coffin and come after you. We don't have a score for our social life in America. What we have is history. Dr. King was keenly aware of this. He talked about it, almost obsessively. In 1967, in his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, Dr. King talks about the backlash. He says the backlash has always been with us. It's not new. That we looked at every movement that sought to achieve some sort of social equality or to achieve some form of social justice, and it provoked a backlash that tried to resurrect the status quo. And this is what he was trying to warn us against. And so we don't need the static version of Dr. King. We don't need simply the person who had a dream. We need to understand and engage with the brilliant analyst who looked at theology, who looked at history, who looked at current events, and tried to leave us a roadmap toward a form of democracy that he would never live to see. So I'm happy to be among you today. I'm happy to be in Queens. I'm happy. I was speaking in the church this morning, actually. That's where I just came from. I was like, but you tell me to preach, I'm liable to pass a collection plate in here. I'm happy to be in a place where over 800 languages are spoken. It is the place where someone called me out of my name that time. It is the place where we had the Howard Beach conflict. It is the place where we had the conflict over the integration of our schools. But it is also the place that nurtured me, also the place where I formed enduring friendships that last to this day of people from across and around the globe. It is the place whose spirit is embodied in Queens by a person who was not old enough to understand the value of his sacrifice when his life was taken from him in that desolate corner of Mississippi. We're heirs to these struggles. I will conclude by saying this. There are a few things that I know, just a few. I am certain that I can never repay the debt of the people in my community who believed in me, of the Haitian family next door to me, of the Jamaican family across the street from me, the family from West Africa that was up the way. I grew up in Springfield Gardens in Hollis. All right. But I do know this, that as we look at the tides of hostility and xenophobia, the anti-democratic impulses, so we look at these old things that have made themselves new, there is an older thing that has never lost its appeal, and that is our capacity to see each other as ourselves. And that wherever this nation goes, this community, Queens, will be an example of those principles that we lived and yes, sometimes died to preserve. Thank you.
We can certainly see why Jelani Cobb is acclaimed as one of the nation's leading public intellectuals. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for being here as part of our MLK Day celebration. My name is John Yanofsky. I'm the director of Kupferberg Center for the Arts. Really important that you guys are here to acknowledge this incredible legacy here at Queens College and point a mirror and a path forward. Everything old is new again, and our artist tonight, this afternoon, very much represents that. Hopefully you all have been coming to some of our other programs here at Kupferberg Center for the Arts. You got this fancy new brochure when you came in. We have some other great programs we always like to remind folks of. We're doing a special Lunar New Year show in February. The great NPR journalist Ira Glass will be here in March. We're doing a collaboration with Louis Armstrong House Museum, their cohort of artists called Armstrong Now, of which Samara Joy was part of that Armstrong Now legacy a year ago. And then we'll be doing a fantastic show with En Vogue in May, so you can always find out what's happening by visiting our website, kupferbergcenter.org. We also always like to acknowledge our sponsors. We receive support from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, New York Community Bank, which is our season title sponsor, Resorts World New York City, the Howard Gilman Foundation, all of you all, and Queens College, our most important partner. But what's really exciting is what you all are about to see and experience. Miss Samara Joy is truly a star ascendant. When we booked this show 3 years ago, her star was just starting to rise. Incredible legacy, a Bronx native. She's been winning awards, the Sarah Vaughan competition. Again, she was part of the Armstrong Now cohort, and you all will all be able to say, you saw her when, you saw her where, and you saw her here. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Samara Joy.
This is the moment, this is the time. So why don't we take it and make it tonight? On this red night we can whisper in the shadows till the dawn. Skies grow bright, now the shadows are gone. This is the moment, love has begun. Maybe there's danger, but that might be fun. I used to say, if the right one came my way, I'd know it in a moment. This is the moment. You are the one. This is the moment. This is the time. So why don't we take it and make it sublime? On this rare night, we could whisper in the shadows till dawn. Skies grow bright now, the shadows are gone. This is the moment love has begun. Maybe there's danger, but that might be fun. I used to say, if the right one came my way, I'd know it in a moment. This is the moment. You are. Say Thank you very much. It is such a pleasure to be here for the first time here at Queens College. I know I am repping the boogie down today, but we don't have to talk about that. New York is New York, right? And before we go on, I would like to introduce you to the wonderful trio that's behind me on drums, New Jersey / New York's own Evan Sherman. On bass, New York's very own Mikey Migliore. On the piano, New Yorker by way of North Carolina, Luther Allison on the piano. Thank you very much for being here on this special day. It is really, really an honor to be here in the presence of wonderful speakers and like wonderful Dr. Jelani Cobb. It's just an honor to be here. Thank you all for spending your Sunday afternoon with us. I guess a song that describes not only love, but being in love, but it also describes how I feel being here with you all. This song, inspired by Sarah Vaughan, is called Can't Get Out of This Mood, Can't Get Over This Feeling, Can't Get Out of This Mood. Last night your lips were to appear, and the thrill should have been all gone by today in the usual way. But it's only yours I'm out of. Can't get out of this dream. What a fool to dream of you. It wasn't part of my scheme to sigh, tell you that I love you, but I'm saying it and I'm playing it down. Can't get out of this mood. Heartbreak, here I Luther Allison on the piano. You're so late getting home from the office. Did you miss your train? I think it's the 7 train that comes out. Were you caught in the rain? No, don't bother. Don't bother to explain. Can I fix you a quick martini? As a matter of fact, I'll have one with you. For to tell you the truth, I've had quite a day. Guess who I saw today, my dear? I went in town to shop around for something new, and I thought I'd stop and grab a bite when I was through. I looked around for someplace new. Then it occurred to me where I had parked the car. There was a most attractive French cafe and bar. It really wasn't very far. The waiter showed me to a dark, secluded corner, and as my eyes became accustomed to the gloom, I saw 2 people at the bar who were so much in love. Even I could spot it clear across the room. Yes, I saw today, my dear. I'd never been so shocked before. I headed blindly through the door. They didn't see passing through. Guess who I saw today? Guess till I saw I'm a girl of many wishes, hope my premonition misses, but what I really feel, my eyes won't let me hide, 'cause they always start to cry. 'Cause this time couldn't be. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, little Nancy Wilson, a little Stevie Wonder. And now would like to fix our attention on a wonderful composer and pianist of this music that we call jazz. His name was Thelonious Monk. Yes. And he wrote many compositions and lyrics were added on later, and that includes this next song we're about to do for you all. This is a song originally called, instrumentally it's called San Francisco Holiday, but a woman, a singer, a songwriter from New York named Margot Girian wrote lyrics to it and entitled it Worry Later. And so we would like to do for you with lyrics Thelonious Monk's Worry Later. Yeah. If you wake up in the morning with a troubled mind, don't worry now, worry later, friend. If you stop to read the writing on the wall, you'll find all your troubles gone later on. If your friends have gone and left you and you're in a hole, don't worry now, worry later, pal. They will all come back and love you when the good times roll. So don't worry now, later on. Someday you are going to a peaceful place with lots of time to run the race. So that's when you should catch up on your worrying. Take it slow. Stop hurrying. And remember to forget it when you're feeling blue. Don't worry now, worry later, friend. Any doctor will confirm what I have said to you. So don't worry now, later on. If you wake up in the morning with a troubled mind, don't worry now, worry later. If you stop to read the writing on the wall, you'll find your trouble's gone later on. If your friends have gone and left you and you're in a hole, don't worry now, worry later. They will all come back and love you when the good times roll, so don't worry now, later on. Someday you are going to a peaceful place, lots of time to run the race, so that's when you should catch up on your worrying. Take it slow, stop hurrying. Remember to forget it when you're feeling blue. Don't worry now, worry later, friend. Any doctor will confirm what I have said to you. Don't worry now, later on. peaceful place with lots of time to run the race. That's when you should catch up on your worrying. Take it slow, stop worrying, and remember to forget it when you're feeling blue. Don't worry now, worry later, friend. Any doctor will confirm what I have said to you. Don't worry now, let it run. Don't worry now, let it run. Don't worry now, let it run. Evan Sherman on the drums. Thelonious Monk. Thank you very much. And now we would like to focus our attention on another wonderful voice, part of the civil rights movement, a musical voice. Her name was Abby Lincoln. Yes, give it up for Abby Lincoln. At a time, of course, when singers, I guess, were expected to sort of just put on a dress and sing. Don't, ruffle too many feathers, just sing the love songs, sing the popular songs, and you'll be fine. But instead, she chose to embrace her individuality. She chose to use her voice for good in order to speak about life and the world that was surrounding her at that time. This album was released, this album is called Straight Ahead, and it was released in 1961, of course in a time of a lot of things going on in the United States. And so I was drawn to her voice. It's not I guess popularly pretty, but it's beautiful to me, and it's just all of the emotion that she pours into her songs, all of the emotion that she pours into her lyrics, I was immediately drawn to. And so this song by Abby Lincoln is called Straight Ahead. Straight ahead, the road keeps winding, narrow and dimly lit, vainly looking for a crossroads where a weary soul can sit lost in needing some direction, dodging ruts along the way, bumpy road, confuse a body, lead a trusting soul astray. For some, this road is smooth and easy, traveling high without a care. But if you got to use the back roads, straight ahead can lead nowhere. On this road, you've got a problem getting where you want to go. Speed limit's almost down to nothing. Straight For some, this road is smooth and easy, traveling high without a care. But if you've got to use the back roads, straight ahead can lead nowhere. Speed limits almost down to nothing. Straight ahead, but also slow. Straight on. Thank you very much. Thank you. Luther Allison on the piano. Thank you. Okay, and from that same record, there's a song called Retribution, and the line goes, "Let the retribution match the contribution," and I don't know why, but I feel like you all know the song. It reminds me of the song, "You Got to Have a J-O-B if you wanna." I already knew it. It has nothing to do with the song, it just reminded me of it. So, now that we all know we're on the same page, this is Abby Lincoln's Retribution. Never was a child, living life since I was 10. Heard every story told, been everywhere but in. And I ain't disillusioned, always new confusion stories. Don't want no silver spoon, ain't asking for the moon. Give me nothing, don't want no favors done. Just let the retribution match the contribution. Baby, no street that's paved with gold. Don't want no hand to hold. Hand me nothing. Don't want no sad song sung. Just let the retribution match the contribution. Baby. silver spoon. Ain't asking for the moon. Give me nothing. Don't want no sad song, son. Let the retribution match the contribution, baby. No street that's paved with gold. Don't want no angel. Give me. Don't want no favors done. Let the retribution match the contribution. Let the retribution match the contribution. Let the retribution match the contribution, baby. Thank you very much. Abby Lincoln, Retribution and Straight Ahead, Luther Allison on the piano. Oh, and I'm going to highlight another wonderful singer and songwriter, composer really in this jazz canon. Her name was Betty Carter. Yeah. And just like similar to Abby Lincoln, but also very, very different, just expressing very freely, their message, what they want to project to people. It's inspiring to me, they all, it's like they have their own voices, their own messages, and they all sound beautiful. So this is a song that she wrote that's called Tight, and the first line, she's very, very, very open and honest. I'm fortunate, all of us are fortunate to know musicians who have played with her, and they'll tell you the same thing. She's real. And the first line of this song is very straightforward. She says, I don't know where my man is. So here's Betty Carter's Tight. I don't know where my man is. Where can he be? What is he doing? I've been asking questions all over town. Where is he? I've been a-hunting, hoping he can be found. I'm on the loose and I don't dig it. Take my advice. If you find a man, hold on to him. Don't let him, if you want him, don't let him, hold on to him. Searching, hunting, looking, asking questions all over Queens. Where can he be? Where can he be? I'm hoping he can be found. I'm on the loose and I don't dig it. So take my advice. If you find a man, hold on to him. Don't let him, if you want him, don't let him, hold on to him. But if you don't want him, just let him go. It's 2023. Hold on to him. Hey, don't let him go. If you want, don't let him go. If you want, don't let him go. Don't. If you want, don't let him go. If you want, don't let him go. Don't let him go. Don't let him go. Don't let him go. Don't let him. Hold on to him. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very, very real, very honest, very straightforward. And this year has been really, really amazing. Like the past couple of years, so many doors have opened, so many opportunities to sing and to just do my dream. Like this is my dream, to be able to present music to people and just be direct, Thank you. And it has opened up a lot of doors to travel. I've been fortunate enough to go to Europe a few times and play in France and Italy and Portugal and Switzerland and Poland. I'm not name dropping, I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. Come with me if you want. Packing our bags at the end of February, okay? But One of the places that I'm looking forward to visiting is Brazil this year. Thank you. And so I want to make sure I get my Portuguese straight, because everywhere I go, I like to learn at least a phrase or a song in that language to show how much I appreciate, being there and having support not only in the States but overseas. So this is a song that I learned from a Brazilian artist named Javan, and it's called Flor de Lis, and which translates to lily flower. And I love this translation of one of the lines. It's like, even though I loved you so much, destiny did not want us to be attached as roots are to a lily flower. And I was like, deep. That's deep. So I hope I've been practicing. I've been working on it. So here is my interpretation of Javan's Flor de Lis in Portuguese. Valei-me Deus, é o fim do nosso amor. Perdoa, por favor. Eu sei que o erro aconteceu, mas não sei o que fez. Tudo muda de vez. Onde foi que eu errei? Eu só sei que amei, que amei, que amei, que amei. Será talvez que minha ilusão foi dar meu coração com toda a força pra essa moça me fazer feliz. E o destino não quis me ver como raiz de uma flor de lis. E foi assim que eu vi nosso amor na poeira, poeira, morto na beleza fria de Maria. E o meu jardim da vida, essa calma do pé que brotou Maria, nem Margarida nasceu. E o meu jardim da vida, essa calma do pé que brotou Maria, nem Margarida nasceu. É o fim do nosso amor. Perdoa, por favor. Eu sei que o erro aconteceu, mas não sei o que fez. Tudo muda de vez. Onde foi que eu errei? Eu só sei que amei, que amei, que amei, que amei, que amei. Será talvez que minha ilusão foi dar meu coração com toda a força pra essa moça me fazer feliz. E o destino não quis me ver como raiz de uma flor de lis. E foi assim que eu vi nosso amor na poeira, poeira, onde na beleza fria de Maria eu meu jardim da vida, essa cama do pé que brotou Maria, nem Margarida nasceu. And then you'll see me flying so high up in the sky. So be what you are, but please let me believe that you are mine. And then you'll see me flying so high up in the sky. Be what you are, but please let me believe that you very much. Thank you very much. I'm trying, I'm from the Bronx, so I don't have Spanish yet, but somehow, but I'm working on that. 2023 goals. But thank you very much. Before we continue, I'd like to shout out my mom and dad and my little brother out here in the front row. Yes. I think it has been like this since I was in elementary school. always in the crowd supporting, even if, it doesn't matter what, choir, musicals, everything. So, thank you. What'd you say, Ma? We love you. Oh, man. So, this is a very special day. We're honoring Martin Luther King, and I thought it might be fitting to do a song performed by the great Duke Ellington and Mahalia Jackson. Featuring Luther Allison, this is called Come Sunday. Lord, dear Lord of love, God Almighty, God above, please look down and see my people through. God, dear God above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through. I believe the sun and moon will shine up in the sky when the day is gray. I know it's just clouds passing by. He'll give peace and comfort to every troubled mind. Come Sunday, oh, come Sunday. That's the day. your every prayer. Lilies of the valley, they neither toil nor spin. Come Sunday, oh, come Sunday. That's the day. Come Sunday. That's the day. Thank you very much. Duke Ellington and Mahalia Jackson, come Sunday. Thank you for being here this afternoon. Luther Allison on the piano. Evan Sherman on the drums. Mikey Migliore on the bass. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're too kind. Can we do one more for you? Okay. We can all start. D flat, two. I hope you win the Grammy. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. One of my favorite singers, Carmen McRae, in addition to Betty and Abby, she gave this little tidbit of advice when it comes to making the set list. She said, you can't lose if you sing the blues. So, we don't necessarily want to give you the blues on this Sunday, but we're just going to sing it for you, okay? And if you want to stand up, if you want to clap your hands, that's all right. That's all right. But thank you once again for being here this evening, this afternoon. Tell me, pretty baby, have you got eyes for me? Tell me, pretty baby, have you got eyes for me? Please don't keep me waiting, what will your answer be? I had a dream, just a dream I had last night. Just a dream I had last night. When I woke up this morning, not a thing there could I find. I dreamed I was in the White House, sat in the president's chair. The president looked at me and said, "Sir Mayor, I'm glad you're here, but that was a dream I had last night." When I woke up this morning, not a president could I find. Hold it right there, baby, please, please don't go. Hold it right there, baby, please don't go. that's a real question or not, but can't believe that you don't love me. I thought our love was here to stay. Hold it right there. Baby, baby, please don't go. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it right there, baby, please. Don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go. Don't you leave me now, baby, and I love you so. Evan Sherman on the drums, Mikey Migliore on the bass, Luther Allison on the piano. My name is Samara Joy. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Weren't they great? The best jazz vocalists only have one name, right? Billy, Ella, Sarah, and now Samara. We will remember this night. Good night, folks.